Well, hello there, friends, family, and fans. Some of you have been following along on my Appalachian Trail Thru Hike, and you've seen that the Lord allowed me to summit Mount Katahdin and finish this thing on September 26th. And what an amazing day, an amazing trail, an amazing journey that whole thing was. And a lot of you have asked a bunch of questions about my gear. What did I like? What didn't I like? Would you do some gear reviews? And so today we're going to review the Zpacks Duplex tent. I bought this tent before I started my thru hike, so this tent carried me through the entire 2,190 miles of the Appalachian Trail. And I'll begin this whole gear review with, I absolutely love this tent. It's one of my favorite pieces of gear, and everybody that I knew that had a Zpacks Duplex tent loved theirs also. I'm going to try to do pros and cons with this tent. I'm not going to get into all the technical details. Zpacks' website has all the information you need. I believe this camouflage version, which is the thickest material, weighs about 1.25 pounds, give or take the tent stakes. And so you can look up all the dimensions and the specs on Zpacks' website. I'm going to tell you what it was like for a thru hiker to use this tent on a daily basis. And let me tell you, some of the things that I loved about this tent was, first of all, it's very, very light. In fact, it's one of the lightest tents out there. The Cuban fiber was 100% waterproof. I did not have any problems with rain getting in the tent through the material. I did have some problems with rain getting in, but I'll explain that during the cons. I love the fact that the Duplex has 2 sets of doors, 2 vestibules. That's amazing for the weight. You can't beat it. For the size of this tent, it's like living in luxury out there on the trail. And when you're thru hiking, you need all the advantages you can get. And having a nice place to sleep is really a boost for you mentally and emotionally. And so I rarely stayed in shelters because I just preferred my tent. I could spread my gear out. It was waterproof, windproof. I could just be alone and relax in the evening and get a good night's sleep, wake up in the morning. And it literally, I think I timed myself, it takes less than 5 minutes to either pitch or tear down. So let's go ahead, let's just do a quick walk around. I love the way it's stitched. The material, the manufacturing, the attention to details is basically second to none. This is the 2017 edition, so it's got the updates of these tensioners. They come standard. Again, 2 different doors and vestibules. Let's do a quick walk around. Every single one of the guy lines has a tensioner built into it. It's got string loops that I never had to retie anything. The cords are still basically like they were the day that I took them out. This is the other side of the tent. It's completely symmetrical, so it doesn't matter if you go left, right, it doesn't matter. There's no head or foot to the thing. So you can pitch it any way you want to. This is the other set of doors, and as long as the sun's not a problem, we can open up this side, but it's all identical. You've got the corner guy lines, and you've got these, I call them headroom guy lines. But let me start to open up this tent for you, and we'll show you what it looks like inside. So release the tension and take this little toggle apart, and you can roll these doors up. You can do it from inside or outside. It's very fast and easy, and there's a pretty standard loop and toggle here to hold the doors back. And I typically slept with the tent with one door rolled up and one door staked out like this. That way I got maximum airflow. But for demonstration purposes, I'll roll up both the doors. And I usually would leave it this way in the evening until I was kind of ready to settle in, as long as the weather was nice. Leave it kind of opened up so I got lots of airflow. And then I would put my little kneeling pad down and kneel down and open up the zippers. And I never had a single problem with the zipper. I never had any problem with anything. The tent performed perfectly for me. Those of you that watched my videos know that I'm pretty careful with my gear, but it lasted very well and performed quite well. Here's the stuff sack that it comes in, and the little stake that you put the tent stake bag. So let's go inside the tent and I'll show you what kind of room there is. So again, it's a 2-person tent, so there's lots and lots of room. Can you see okay? This is me on about half of the tent. Lots of room, and one of the things that I liked about the tent was I could set up inside the tent and cook my food in the vestibules if it was bad weather and raining. So let me just demonstrate what it's like to do that from in here. It's no problem and very easy. Reach out and grab the guy line and snug it down. I would even leave them both open, and if it started to rain, just kind of wake up and reach out and set that up. So if the rain was coming from my right to my left, I could sit here and cook right here and even have this open to let heat fumes or whatever out. Zip up the mosquito net, and you can sit in here and read or check your social media or do whatever you want. And you can see I'm almost 6 feet. I'm at 5'11", and I've got, oh boy, multiple inches above my head. So there's lots of room. Inside, let's talk a minute about what I didn't like. And I'll sit here to do it, because I may be able to demonstrate it. The first night of the Appalachian Trail, we had a huge storm come through in the evening, or in the middle of the night. And I had pitched the tent at this height, which is 120 centimeters on my trekking poles. It's about 47 inches, right where Zpacks recommends it to be pitched. And because of the height of the vestibules, and because I had it pitched like I do now with a lot of ventilation available, the rain was driven so hard from this horrible storm that came through. The rain actually came underneath the vestibule, bounced off of the dirt that we had set our tent up on, and it bounced through the mesh and got our sleeping bags slightly damp. I realized at the time that I should have pitched it a lot lower and we wouldn't have had near that problem. And the other thing that I realized is the only reason it happened was because we were set up at a campsite with pure bare dirt. There was no leaves or pine needles or grass or anything, so the rain was able to bounce off almost like concrete. I never had that issue the whole rest of the nearly 2,200 miles of the trail. So it only happened that one time, but it's something to remember and to consider. So with this tent, one of the cons is you can get some rain driven in underneath, but that's also a benefit because it allows lots of ventilation. One of the negatives to a single wall tent like the Zpacks Duplex is it's a single wall design, meaning there's not a tent body and a separate rain fly to allow condensation to go through the tent body and cling to the rain fly and run down on the outside of your tent. What happens on a single wall tent is your condensation from your breath and the heat that creates the condensation in the air from atmospheric humidity rises to the top of the tent. And in the morning when you wake up, you'll have water on the inside of your tent. And that's just condensation. Your tent didn't leak. It's a deal with a single wall tent. So with the duplex, like any single wall tent, you need to have as much ventilation as possible. Again, most of the time I slept with it in this configuration, either both sides or one side open, and that usually was plenty of ventilation to keep the inside of my tent dry. One of the huge advantages of the Cuban fiber material is it doesn't absorb water like sil nylon does. And so when it would rain, all my friends would be shaking out their sil nylon and trying to get them to dry. All I had to do was shake this thing a few times and it was nearly as light as it was when it was dry, because it just simply doesn't absorb any water. So a huge benefit to the Cuban fiber is it's lightweight, it's extremely tough, it is 100% waterproof, and it doesn't absorb water, so it's pretty tough to beat. One of the negatives to the duplex is its price. It is very expensive. This material, because it's space age, pretty magical stuff. It's very expensive. I think the camouflage version in early 2017 cost $630. Double check the website. I don't know what the prices are doing, if they're going up or down, but I believe I paid $630 for the camo version. Again, this is the heaviest material, but the other materials are a little bit lighter, but they're also more see-through. So my wife, Halo, she said, if you want me to come and sleep in the tent with you, I want that darker material. And I'm really glad that we got the camo version, because it doesn't let near as much light in. So if you want to sleep past sunrise, it's a lot darker in here. The light blue the option that Zpacks makes is maybe the prettiest, but man, it glows like a light bulb inside. So just really do your research on tent color before you drop the big money and buy one of these tents. But I know almost everybody that I met on the trail would like to get one of these. Those of us that had them loved them. The only thing that I would consider doing different for another potential thru hike, if it was a solo hike, is I would explore like possibly the Hexamid or the Soloplex or Solplex, some of the different options that are made out there for one person that are even lighter. You can get them without floors for 10, 12, 13 ounces, maybe 14 ounces with the floor. Crazy lightweight. So if I was trying to go super ultra light, I would maybe consider doing something different. The other thing I would consider for those of you shopping for tents out there is if you're going to be in an extremely rocky terrain, two possibilities. One is to look at other freestanding tents like the Big Agnes Fly Creek UL1 or UL2, or the Copper Spur UL1 or UL2. Those tents are basically freestanding and allow you to pitch in some different settings where this is more difficult. Or the other thing is Zpacks does offer some aftermarket poles, some poles that you can use to pitch this tent on terrain, and you don't need the trekking poles, and you can pitch this thing almost anywhere you want. So a couple different options to consider there depending on the terrain that you're going to be in. But again, I never really had any trouble on the whole Appalachian Trail finding a place to pitch this. I even pitched on tent platforms. I never pitched inside a shelter, but I pitched on plenty of the wooden platforms at some of the campsites up in New Hampshire and Maine. And what I used were logs and rocks to run my guy lines out. So hopefully that was helpful. If I missed anything, if you have more questions, please respond with comments down below, and I'll try to get to them as quick as I can. And again, highly recommend the tent, Zpacks Duplex. Works very well for me. So thanks for coming along with me. If you have not yet done so, please consider subscribing, sharing the video, and liking it. It sure helps us. So thanks, guys.